G'day, guys. I just want to wish everyone happy Easter. Those following the Western calendar and those who are following the Eastern calendar, happy Easter for next week, which is the Western churches celebrate their Easter this weekend, and the Greek Orthodox and the other Orthodox churches the next Sunday, the 16th. So the 9th, the West and all that. And pretty much because it has to do with the old calendar. The Orthodox Church in the 20s, I can't remember the exact year, they changed to the Gregorian calendar, except the Russian church, which was under Soviet rule. I've done a video explaining that. So, and the Greek Orthodox and the other churches, which was the majority of them, they changed over, but they didn't change Pascha, which is Easter. And the reason for that was because there's a thing called the Nicene Ecumenical Council. That's the first one. That was the one that actually set the rules, what was going to go into the Bible, the whole lot. That's what all the churches. And there was an element in there that pretty much said that Pascha should be celebrated to be consistent with the Old and New Testament, should be celebrated after the Jewish Passover. And so for that reason, we're out of sync for most of the time. Sometimes we sort of coincide every 4 years, but not necessarily. It can vary from year to year, like 2010, 11, I think it was 2017, the last one, I think. And I think it's going to become 2030 something, which will be the next one. I just can't remember exactly, where it's going to coincide again. So that sort of set the rules of when Pascha was celebrated. Before that, all they celebrated either just slightly after Passover or on Passover. It sort of varied, the early church, and it just, with the First Ecumenical Council, sort of, this is the time, and it was actually set. Now, the Orthodox Church still follows the Nicene Creed of the First Ecumenical Council, obviously, because, and that's what, in order to adhere to that, they have to basically stick to the old Julian calendar to basically be in sync with the Jewish Passover to do it after. So that creates another complication, which I'm not going to get into the politics of that. So that's just a bit of the backstory, so people have a bit of an understanding why those differences are. One has to do with the calendar, the other one has to do with the Nicene Creed, which the East Church still follows. The West Church sort of doesn't consider that as an important element within the Nicene Creed. I'm not going to get into the theological arguments, because there are even some people in the Orthodox Church which have got different opinions on this, so not going to get into that. But all that's just to give people a bit of a background. But all I wanted to do is just wish everyone a happy Easter this week, for those on the the Roman Protestant side, and also happy Easter to everyone in the Eastern Orthodox sort of side for next week. That's pretty much it. I'd like to also thank my subscribers for their support for the first few months of this year. It's been quite enjoyable, and also for people that turn up to the live streams and ask questions, all sorts of things, because without you guys turning up to the live streams, wouldn't be possible. We live in very sort of evil times, very strange times. We've got a war on faith. We've got a war on ethics. we've got a war on tradition especially in the West. Things are really going crazy. I look at some of the stuff's happening in America. If you guys are next level, it's really disturbing what's happening over there with this weaponized trans cult that's been financed by very powerful individuals. And you've got a political class which basically is more committed to the donors. These powerful individuals, these evil men primarily, that are pushing these agendas, like Soros and the Vanguard Group and BlackRock. These are very powerful groups. I mean, BlackRock, 53 trillion, double that of the GDP of the United States. So you can understand what we're talking about. Goliaths, Goliaths with a demonic agenda which is an anti-human agenda. It's this transhumanism. This is what they're pushing. Remember, through this trans bullshit that's being pushed, and this destruction of faith, this destruction of values and all that, anything is relative. What they're trying to do is push the transhuman agenda, because the transhuman agenda is these people are so wealthy, they think they're gods on earth. They want to become gods. They want to become one with the AI. They want to basically embrace this post-human dystopian civilization, and they believe that they can live forever. They can basically, let's say, avoid the consequences of this fallen realm, which is death, the final course of our flesh. It dies in this realm. It dies because it is subject to entropy. It's a fallen realm. It's a realm where things decay. This isn't a realm. This is a fallen realm of darkness, not a realm of light. And the problem is that these people don't want to embrace our Lord and find salvation through our Lord. They want to embrace the AI and deify the AI. It is absolutely lunacy. But this is what happens when humans are degenerate to this level. It's like when you've got too much money, too much power. Just look at all the old kings and emperors and all that, the sort of degeneracy they fell into. These people are no different. The most degenerate people on the planet. And they are the people that control the purse strings of a lot of these politicians and are pushing this agenda very hard. They've captured a number of political parties around the world, and they're using the World Economic Forum as sort of a vehicle to push a lot of this agenda as well. So it's a crazy, sort of milieux of a lot of different players with a whole lot of different little cults and courses and subgroups, but all of them are tied to this transhuman agenda that these elites are pushing. And so you have to destroy what exists now in order to create their new dystopian future. That's what it's all about. These people are very dangerous. They hate humanity. They listen to the whisperers, the evil whisperers, and they have been, let's say, very much on the side of darkness. Sorry about the actual light. There's quite a bit of light coming in at the moment. I'm doing this, early in the day. But we need to stand up. And like Christ, God who took flesh, who became one of us, Christ who is both man and God, those two that one person, but with two natures. sacrificed himself for us and is a beacon to elevate humanity, to give us the opportunity to embrace the energies of God in order to become one with our Creator. But many of us in the modern world have rejected that. We've rejected the cross we all have to bear. We've said, no, we don't want to bear any cross. We just want to have a good time. We just want to, do the easy thing. It's always easy to do evil things, to do corrupt things. It's always easy. And that's, that's a moral bankruptcy that our society has and is permeating our whole society. But there are many of us that actually, like a lot of my subscribers, that resist this lunacy, this evilness that exists. And that's the cross we have to bear. We have to stand up. Nobody else is going to do it, guys. We have to stand up for species appropriate nutrition, not this, fasting mimicking diets forever, which is what the veganerized community would like to push, and these transhumans push as well. It's part of the agenda of dumbing down the population so they're more controllable, and also make them less able to conceive so they can actually cull the herd in a controlled way, because less of us means it's much easier for them to put their dystopian future. More of us, very hard to push their agenda if there is more of us resisting and opposing their agenda. Do you understand? That's all part of it. So the cross that we have to bear is to create strong families to resist these people. That's what we have to do. And if we don't do that and we don't resist these people, we will lose in the long run. And I don't believe that that's going to happen. I have faith that there are plenty of good people out there that will resist this madness. You need to understand, they did experiments back in the 60s where they had put on a board one line and then had 4 representations of that same line, and then said to people, what do you believe it is? And they had experts. Does that sound familiar? Saying, oh, that line seems like it is. And everyone, and those who, about 30%, blindly agreed with the expert, even though it was quite clear that it was wrong, what the expert had pointed to. And then about 40% went along with it because they did, even though they knew, there's something wrong with it. Maybe I'm not reading it right, which is what a large proportion of people do. They actually went along with it because they didn't want to basically make waves. They didn't want to bear the cross that was given to them. Cowardice and laziness. And then a third, about 30%, were the ones that resisted to varied degrees. Some of us more, some of us less. We knew it was wrong, we rejected it, but some of us were willing to put on a good fight against it. Some of us weren't. Even though we knew it was wrong, we didn't go along with it, but we didn't take the fight to these people. And the fight to these people has to be much smarter, because when they've actually taken 40% of the sheep with them, these more ideologues, what happens is it's very hard to convince them otherwise. So how do you change a society? Well, you have to convince that 40% to swing the other way. How do you do that? Simple. Point out the obvious contradictions in the arguments of your opponent, of those putting these deranged demonic ideas. And then just allow that 40% to come to that realization. Well, that doesn't sound right. That's how you can switch them back the other way. And then once 70+% are saying no more of this nonsense, that's how you stop the nonsense. But if we're not willing to bear that cross and not willing to basically make those arguments, not go out there and preach, but have friendly conversations and just point out those errors, those contradictions. Let people think. People are, when left alone and not in a mob state where they're sort of that reptilian part of their brain sort of is active only, and they start thinking about things, they're likely to come to the conclusion that that doesn't sound logical. It doesn't sound right. That's how we convince people to come, and then they're more willing to listen to other things, to listen to things of faith, to listen to a whole lot of other important messages that we could actually pass. But we need to first make them realize how nonsensical the other argument is. And once they realize that, then they're more willing to listen to other things. That's how you do it. Because otherwise, if you go too hard and too, a bit like the other side does, and come across in a very abrasive or fanatical way, you're going to lose them. That 40% are sheep-like, but they don't like to be pushed. That's why they're sheep-like. They just go along with things. So you need to basically be a bit more tactful the way you approach those people. The fanatics, forget it. They have to burn out their madness, turn in on themselves, because usually that's what they do. These nutters, they will turn in on themselves. You just have to take a look at all the different, rebellions or whatever else. They just eat themselves to bits because they're such Puritan lunatics that they are in their own madness. They basically will tear each other apart. So we just need to bring them that large proportion of people in the middle towards us in a smart way, and save them from their own laziness and sheepishness, the way they sheepishly go along with these things. Most reasonable people understand. They're looking at these lunacies that are being pushed. And I think most people understand what I mean. Now, I know it's, a lot of people think, well, it's Easter. I want to eat some eggs. I want to drink some, I've got some indiscretions as well, so I'll be cheating a bit. Don't overdo it, okay? Or otherwise I'll have to call Ted and get him to come over and spank us. The only problem is that some of you may enjoy it. That's the only problem. So you'll actually abuse that privilege, won't you? Well, let me put it this way. I'll send over little Tassie Devil to sort you out. You'll bite some sense into you. But beyond that, guys, the cross that we have to all bear and remind ourselves on these holy days is we need to be examples like Christ. I mean, he went amongst the rich, amongst all sorts of sinners. He broke bread, as they say, ate with them. He didn't go there to lecture them or to be nasty or condemn them or whatever. He just put smart arguments and let them think. And they themselves then realized their errors. So learn from his example that Bible bashing people isn't going to get through to these people, but with intelligent arguments and pointing out the obvious contradictions and lunacy of those arguments, then some people will break ranks with this lunacy. They will think and go, that doesn't make sense, this makes sense, and they will break. And that's the message. That's the real message. He sacrificed himself for us. The least we could do is basically step up, carry that cross, and do likewise, and learn from his example, and stop putting it off and saying, oh, it's too difficult, I don't want to. You don't need to argue with people. That's not what he's telling you. He's telling you, put the good message forward and let them think about it. You may change their minds over time. You don't need to bash them over the head with the information. So anyway, that's it. I hope everybody has a great Easter day, enjoys themselves, doesn't overdo it. I haven't touched the alcohol yet, but I will, and I will enjoy it. I got some ciders, some really nice ciders. Tasmanian ones, actually. Oh, well, I am Tasmanian after all. I got to go local. Do support your local producers. And I've got some really nice steaks. Actually, last night I had some really nice some eggs and some meat and stuff like that. So I did enjoy myself quite a bit. So I'll be on next Friday, which will be our, Good Friday. I'll have to be very careful on I'll be on fish. So I do have some really nice fish. So I'll be enjoying it on that day. And the next week I'll do a couple of days of fasting just to do the right thing and be a good boy. Yeah, so pretty much that's me. So I won't be having any live streams until after Greek Busker, so it'll be not next week, but the week after. So it'll give you guys a bit of an opportunity to check some of my older videos. They do need some viewership after all, and there is still some really very good information in those. So I hope you enjoy them. Well, that's it. So have a great Easter, and anybody taking holidays, have a great holiday break. I'm taking a couple next week, the whole week off, so I'm just going to enjoy myself and just with family and friends and do a few things for myself just to, as well. So, but anyway, that's it. Happy Easter to you all, and take care. See yous.